Now then, for some time now since I started to study the Twin Towers in America of coming down, I've always thought that it's something more to it than appears to the eye. You see, I've never been satisfied with the fact that explosives were fitted into the buildings, because of the amount of time it would take for such a vast area would be too great to get away with inserting explosives. But I have to accept, because the testimony of the firemen, for one, who were there on the day, testified that the floors were detonated. Now, I'm not in any position, and nobody is in any position. They may think so by their own arrogance, to say that the firemen were wrong to say that. The only persons that have every right to say that the floors were detonated were those on site, the firemen and others. Get rid of these Judy picking woods, these money makers, these despicable, evil people. They are riding on the back of a event that is so atrocious, and they have no heart. They're bringing these pigging, I've got these frigging ray guns, and they turn the things into dust, and people are pigging following them as heartless as can be. It is absolute wickedness to use an event, such an awful event as this. People lost their lives. Our fellow humans lost their lives. We take this pigging seriously. These buggers don't. These Judy Woods don't. They just say they do. They pay lip service. Wretched people. Wretched people and their disciples. And Hall should get himself straightened out about this. Richard D. Hall. He's been taken in willfully. Ignoring the evidence from those on site. Do you know, if we were at an event, and this goes for the Judy Woods and her disciples and the rest of them, if we were in an event that went off in front of us, and we testified and gave our account, set it down, it's our account, you'd see it, as I once saw a public house blown up in London in '74. How dare anybody come along who is not there, who is not part of the event, who is sitting hundreds of miles a pigging way, and say No, it didn't happen like that. It happened like this. How dare you? Judy Woods wouldn't like that. Her disciples wouldn't like that. But that's what they're saying to the firemen and others. The managers of the building and office staff of the building, who all declare that it was detonated. The buildings were detonated. How they're these buggers who were not on site. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine? You're on a frigging floor in the sky and the bugger's being blown up, and you know it's being blown up because you're on the pigging floors and you can testify to it afterwards that it's pigging being blown up beneath you, and you've got to get down the frigging stairs and you're going down and down and down and down and down and you're getting no pigging further, it seems. And you're going down and down and everything's going off around you, and these buggers are sitting in their sodding chairs miles away saying, oh no, it wasn't exploding, it was a ray gun. You're a frigging disgrace. I'd like to get these bastards and put them into the buildings and let them see, let them run down these pigging stairs with all the floors being detonated. Oh no, let them sit in their sodding comfy armchairs. This man here, I don't accept a lot of what he says, because a lot of what he says is not backed up by evidence. But there is in here a certain amount of evidence that is basically evidential. It speaks for itself. Okay, you don't have to be on site to see it. But it is clearly what happened, how the way it was. As I began, I didn't understand what it was fully, or rather how it was, that each and every floor could have been fitted out, kitted out with explosives because of the time and the vastness of these pigging buildings. It's not like you're picking ordinary, everyday, off-the-shelf office block. It's a frigging buildings, and these are tough buildings. Now we've had the reports of eyewitnesses that are telling another section of society who are saying that no planes hit the pigging towers. They're doing the same. They've got eyewitnesses here stating to the media, stating to cameras, stating to us in plain sight, plain hearing, that it was military planes that hit the towers. Planes actually hit the towers. And these buggers in their armchairs hundreds of pigging miles away are saying, no, you're liars. It really gets my pigging back up. How dare they have the frigging arrogance to tell people who are on site that they are frigging liars. How dare they? They're the scum of the earth that tell people that they are liars. They're the scum. Absolute scum. And I have no truck with this scum. And I've told people like this to their faces, you're scum. Utter scum. Because you're telling eyewitnesses they're lying. How dare you? How dare you? There is no way that an eyewitness is going to confess and testify and witness against their own government's planes hitting those towers. The government made it out to be passenger planes. The eyewitnesses said it was government planes. The government did it. And then, of course, there's the altering of the footage to hide the fact that it was government pigging planes as much as possible. Anyhow, this fella here, and again, I don't believe anything he says, unless it is evidenced. And quite frankly, a lot of it is just questionable. But it does bring evidence here, there and everywhere to parts of it, of what he's had to say. Just take it away.
See, who called my attention to the fact that just as Hiroshima and Nagasaki were sacrificial offerings, so were the immolation of people in the Twin Towers.
See, this is where he goes wacko, because this is all just rhetoric. There's no evidence for this. Somebody had told him that it was Satanists that had blown these towers up, and they were offering the people to Satan. There's no evidence for that.
And this was a nuclear event, to my understanding, and this is not to any way discount the use of other explosives or weapons on that day. There were basement explosions that preceded.
Exactly.
What I'm talking about is the two moments when those towers exploded, not collapsed.
You see, evidence is just spoken there, you see, intermingled with rhetoric. The fire officers and staff and people in the lobby area said the basements blew up in both buildings. Blew up. A repeat of 1993, okay, when one of the buildings was blown up from underneath the basement. Said they were blown up and they were blown against the walls and the windows were blown out before there was explosions up above. Now the Judy Woods, the disciples, etc., ignore this because it's fact. They don't like truth. They go for their ray guns. Evil beggars.
And I would never have written about this. I have an article called To 9/11 and Beyond, the Rothschild-Israeli Obsession with Nuclear Weapons. As a further disclaimer, by the way, I'm half Jewish, if anybody wonders about anti-Semitism. Okay, we are just talking about history here. But I was contacted by people from overseas who are experts in nuclear fission, and they showed me why this was a nuclear event and exactly where the bombs would have been placed. And me not being a nuclear fission expert in any way, shape, or form, I never would have written the article without information being provided to me. But I'm going to give you my top 10 reasons why this is a nuclear event. Number one, what type of cancer do first responders from the Twin Towers get more than any other type of cancer in comparison to its expected rate? It's thyroid cancer. Why is that significant? Because an atomic bomb, a nuclear bomb, gives off iodine-131, which embeds in the thyroid. That's why some people keep potassium iodide tablets on hand in the event of a nuclear explosion. That's number one. Number two is the fact that the U.S. Geological Survey collected dust samples for the World Trade Sample, and in those dust samples they found nuclear fission products such as isotopes of uranium and thorium, which cannot be explained by anything except a nuclear fission event. Number three, we're just doing this very, very quick, okay? The molten steel and the fires that persisted for 3 months after the 9/11 event at the World Trade Center. You know, an atomic bomb is extremely hot. It reaches millions of degrees at its center and then less hot as it goes outward. This was a hot event, unlike anything else you would see. Number four is...
Just as a point, he's talking about rubble, molten steel. Judy Woods says there was no molten steel. That the buildings were turned into dust. You can see the dust, she says, coming down. What she doesn't say is look at the comparison of normal dynamited buildings, because normal dynamited buildings, demolition work, creates dust, the same dust. She can't do that. She won't do that. She's conniving. She's totally conniving to pull the wool over people's eyes. You see, when we do it, when we show the footage of buildings coming down having been detonated and all the clouds of dust that are obscuring the rubble behind them, we're speaking the truth. We're showing the same thing that happened with the Twin Towers. And when the dust was cleared, with the first one, with the detonation of, say, an office block, you've got all the rubble and it's all being taken away. Second, you've got the Twin Towers, you've got the trucks on site, you've got the diggers, and you've got what this fella says here, backing it up and backing up the film footage of all the rubble on site. It's been taken away as the dust cloud has dissipated. Judy Woods doesn't want to know this. Neither do her disciples.
Is the explosive power that heaves chunks of steel weighing multiple tons.
Just go back one, just to get into context. Okay.
To my understanding, and this is not to in any way discount the use of other explosives or weapons on that day. There were basement explosions that preceded the. What I'm talking about is the moment, the two moments when those towers exploded, not collapsed. And I would never have written about this. I have an article called To 9/11 and Beyond, the Rothschild-Israeli Obsession with Nuclear Weapons. As a further disclaimer, by the way, I'm half Jewish, if anybody wonders about anti-Semitism. Okay, we are just talking about history here. But I was contacted by people from overseas who are experts in nuclear fission, and they showed me why this was a nuclear event and exactly where the bombs would have been placed. And me not being a nuclear fission expert in any way, shape, or form, I never would have written the article without information being provided to me. But I'm going to give you my top 10 reasons why this is a nuclear event. Number one, what type of cancer do first responders for the Twin Towers get more than any other type of cancer in comparison to its expected rate? It's thyroid cancer. Why is that significant? Because an atomic bomb, a nuclear bomb, gives off iodine-131, which embeds in the thyroid. That's why some people keep potassium iodide tablets on hand in the event of a nuclear explosion. That's number one. Number two is the fact that the U.S. Geological Survey collected dust samples for the World Trade Sample, and in those dust samples they found nuclear fission products such as isotopes of uranium and thorium, which cannot be explained by anything except a nuclear fission event. Number three, we're just doing this very, very quick, okay? The molten steel and the fires that persisted for 3 months after the 9/11 event at the World Trade Center. You know, an atomic bomb is extremely hot. It reaches millions of degrees at its center and then less hot as it goes outward. This was a hot event, unlike anything else you would see. Number four is the explosive power that heaved chunks of steel weighing multiple tons, hundreds of feet. There were pieces that embedded themselves in the American Express building across the street.
Yeah.
Number five is the complete vaporization of everything inside the Twin Towers, inside those buildings. There were 10,000 metal filing cabinets. They were all turned to dust except for one filing cabinet. All the toilets, all the furniture were vaporized. The concrete was turned to dust. All the people were vaporized inside. You cannot show me another building that simply collapsed and there were chunks of steel hurled at 70 miles an hour laterally, or where all the contents were vaporized. This was a unique event. An atomic bomb has that explosive force, and because isn't like a stick of dynamite that just boom, it finishes. It's an explosion that keeps on continuing for several seconds. That's where you get all that energy, that vaporization of the inner contents. Number six.
Just before it goes on to number six, that explains it. Judy Woods makes, and her disciples make a great deal about the inner contents of the buildings having been vaporized by a ray gun. And how the buildings come down and all this dust, and the dust is, of course, the ray gun. The effects of the ray gun! But later on, of course, we all see the masses of rubble. Now, this clears up the 2 points of why there is no steel, toilets, metal toilets and filing cabinets and desks. I mean, when we consider the material that was vaporized and even the people inside through a nuclear reaction, we can understand it. And of course the metal was not vaporized because it was blown out. All that was inside vaporized. All the rest just got blown out. That's why it was never vaporised because it was contained within a space. It's like gunpowder. You can't just blow something up because you put a pile of gunpowder on the ground. You've got to put it into a concealed space, into a barrel. Okay. This secondly answers the fact how it was that they managed to put in explosives that would not have taken months and months and months to do. What you need is a specialised nuclear fission bomb. Maybe the size of your pig in hand. Set at various places according to the plan of the building to bring down the structure, the inner structure, for the rest of it. And of course, once, as he rightly says here, and as we all know, once the piggin fission bomb goes off, that you don't want to be anywhere near that piggin thing. Don't want to be anywhere near that. Do you know these bombs are only piggin small that they drop on the likes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and even smaller now, to kill thousands of people and destroy miles of land. It's like computers. We can now